Andrew Grady is telling his side of the story following the fight, brawl, whatever you want to call it, that took place at the end of the Cars Tour race at Hickory Motor Speedway about 2 weeks ago. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at John Trent Racing. Before we get to what Andrew Grady had to say, let's just kind of give a brief recap here. This is what happened following the race at Hickory. I'm not going to go over exactly what took place on the track or show it. Obviously, Grady got spun off the nose of Landon Huffman. I think it was a really hard racing incident. I don't think anyone was really to blame. And Grady's car ended up in the inside wall and wrecked. Following the race, we hear from Landon Huffman that he threw a clod of dirt, Grady did, into Huffman's car. And then I guess all kind of chaos broke loose as a Cars Tour official, the founder of the Cars Tour, Jack McNelly, tried to remove Grady from the situation. And then there was a report that McNally got pushed to the ground by Grady, and then Lapsevich and his team, Chad Bryant Racing, decided to intervene, and then this brawl ensued. Here is kind of the middle of that. We don't really see what happened at the beginning, but here is the beginning of that brawl. Let's take a look at this. So in a few seconds here, we're going to see Jack McNally. You kind of see him already right here in the background. He's going to make his way back over here. You can see Grady is actually right here already, and McNally is going to confront Grady again. We understand that this is the second time that he's going to confront him, but he's going to get up in his face, and there's going to be some words exchanged. And I do think these words are important to pay attention to as we get to what Andrew Grady has to say about what went down. Let's continue. Can hear a woman saying, you pushed me first. I think Grady is saying something to that effect as well to McNally. It's hard to hear what exactly McNally says. So obviously it's really kind of hard to tell what exactly they are saying with all of the commotion and obviously the chaos that's happening. But it does sound like that Grady's camp is saying that McNally went after him first, even there. And again, like I said, that is going to be important as we get to what Grady actually has to say. So obviously following this, we got this report here from the Cars Tour announcing their penalties. Obviously for Andrew Grady, he received a 3-race suspension and I think $1,500 in fines, $500 for the unauthorized crossing of the racing surface to confront another competitor. The fine must be paid before returning to the series. And then you can see here that at the bottom here, it says Andrew Grady of TG Motorsports will receive a 3-race suspension effective at North Wilkesboro Speedway, Ace Speedway, and Wake County Speedway, and will be fined $1,000. This fine must be paid before returning to the series. And then we also had some crew penalties here. Chris Courtney was received a 1-race suspension and was fined $500, as was Gage Painter. I think Gage Painter is actually part of the Chad Bryant team. So he was indeed, a person on the Chad Bryant team was indeed suspended and fined. So let's go over here. This is Short Track Scene. Matt Weaver does a really good job covering the Cars Tour and stock car racing in general. Really love what he does. And he actually spoke with Andrew Grady about what exactly happened. And we kind of get an idea of at least what Andrew Grady's perspective is on what went down. So I'm not going to go over, this is the post here where you get Landon Huffman talking about his crew was not involved. Lapcevich saying that Jack McNelly was trying to escort Grady back to his trailer after throwing dirt at Landon's car, and then Andrew pushed Jack to the ground. So this is what Grady actually had to say. He says, "I'll say this, a car store official put hands on my mother, left bruises on her, and that same official choked me. I pushed that official off me." So that is what Andrew Grady is saying happened, that Jack McNelly, he doesn't name him, obviously, but that's who the car store official is, and that is the official that he is saying put hands on his mom, left bruises on her, and choked him. And then he says he pushed that official off of him. So that is what he told Matt Weaver here at Short Track Scene. Then obviously he goes on to say this: anything that happened between the official and I, that happened, but it was made worse because of the other team that jumped into it when it wasn't any of their business. So he's kind of putting a lot of the blame on the brawl that took place on Chad Bryant Racing, on Trayton Lapcevich's team, for kind of getting involved in that scenario. And obviously Trayton Lapcevich did indeed say that the Chad Bryant Racing team got involved, and obviously you can see that in that video that we just watched. He goes on and says, it wouldn't have blown up more if that hadn't happened. He then did take some blame. He says that was heat of the moment, obviously referring to when he threw his Hans device at Huffman, and then I think after chucking the dirt in as well during the cooldown lap when he was pulling into the pits. He said, I was mad. This was a brand new race car that now is torn up on every corner. I just felt like Landon could have done something different on the backstretch to where that wouldn't have happened. But I grew up in an era where my heroes, when they got crashed and they were mad, they threw things under caution and they sometimes fought. To me, that's just part of the sport. But I also respect that it's something that Cars Tour doesn't like, and they have to take action against it. I actually agree with him here. When I watch NASCAR, that was part of the sport. I love Jimmy Spencer getting involved in it. Love seeing that kind of stuff happening. That was kind of part of the allure of it, is that these guys had a lot on the line. They didn't like losing. They were going to fight you if you messed up. And I think it created a lot of respect on the track between those guys because they respected each other in the garage. They're going to have to see them every single week, right? Not so much anymore. I mean, we see it here and there, but a lot of times it feels like WWE, and it's more staged than anything rather than actual like emotions, which I do think we saw. I think Grady was legitimately upset, legitimately angry through that Hans device, was still obviously upset. I think his anger was directed at the wrong person. Obviously, I don't think Landon really had much he could have done there to avoid making contact, because Grady does indeed check up. Landon doesn't really have anywhere to go and kind of runs into the rear of him, and then Grady spins off him into the inside wall. So I get it where he's coming from there. Obviously, you do have to check those emotions, though, because Cars Store has made it clear that you're not going to do that. They already had made it very clear that was the case. I think I've talked about this in a number of videos. They suspended Connor Jones last year for throwing his Honda device at a driver. I forget who it was that he threw it at, but he was suspended one race and put on probation. So we knew he was going to at least get one race suspension, but I think whatever happened in the confrontation in the pits obviously escalated, and they went into a 2-race suspension. And so this is kind of a little bit more to that. And obviously it does seem like he did push a track official. We don't have video, so we don't know exactly if what he said here is true. If indeed that McNally put hands on his mom and left bruises on her, and that he choked him, that just seems kind of a little bit out of character. I've never really seen a Cars Tour official do that before. Usually, even in that brawl, you didn't really see Cars Tour officials getting involved trying to pull people away. It was the police came in or other people trying to pull each other off. Didn't really see the officials doing that there, or maybe not that I remember. Just watch that. Maybe I have to go back and look at it just to confirm, but I don't really remember seeing a lot of them getting involved in that. So that just seems out of character that an official would do that, specifically Jack McNally. But let's continue here with what Grady had to say. He says, we read that actually, right down here. So he said, I had 9 pounds of grass in my car after doing some landscaping for Hickory Motor Speedway, and I felt like I needed to express that I was mad about it to Landon. As I did that, here came that official, again, McNally, cussing me out, grabbing me by the throat, and my mom gets pushed, and I just want people to understand that side of it. So that's what he's saying. He said it twice there. He's doubling down on it. Again, I haven't seen any footage that shows any of that. Like the front stretch video starts about halfway through. We don't really see what instigated everything. I've covered a number of other angles, and they are also, the phones kind of come out after the initiating incident, so it is hard to know. But from what we've heard from eyewitnesses, specifically Trayton Lapcevich, is that McNally was actually pushed to the ground by Andrew Grady. I haven't heard anyone but Grady and his team make this claim about Jack McNelly. So not saying it didn't happen, but haven't seen any evidence to show that is what happened to prove that one way or the other aside from his testimony. But Grady goes on and says that you can't keep a grudge in this sport and that he will be petitioning the Cars Tour to hopefully reduce his suspension so he can compete at his home track at Wake County, which I think, given the fact that they have postponed the race at Ace because of the weather here, and I can attest that it is raining outside here by Ace Speedway, where I am now located, filming this video from. So he will have to sit out the next race as well. It won't just be Wake. I think it'll be whatever comes after Wake, which I can't recall off the top of my head. And then obviously he addresses his reputation, given the fact that he attacked Davey Callahan after the Martinsville race, where Callahan drove it in really deep on the last lap of the race, went 3 wide, ended up making contact with Grady, who then spun out. I think it was Brandon Pierce, and Callahan was able to get in through the transfer spot, and then he attacked him. You can see it here. I'm not going to show that if you want to. I'll have the link to this article in the description below, but this is what Grady said. Honestly, I just want everyone to know we've been in short track racing for a long time. I'm 30, and we were short track racing as a family 20 years before I was born. Everyone wants to be racing on Sundays, but beyond that, I just wanted to be a late model racer like my dad, Tony, and Cars Tour is my NASCAR. We've been fortunate to win races and win a championship at Southern National, but these Cars Tour races are so competitive. When we put into our team what we do and have to fight and have that get torn up the way it did at Hickory, I'm going to be upset. I need to be calmer just in general, but I want people to see the blood, sweat, and tears that go into these race cars and that this is something we do as a family. And then again, he kind of reiterates that he hopes that the Cars Tour rethinks their suspension to allow him to race at Wake County. And he says, really, it was just unfortunate for everyone involved, but we're going to get back after it and try to win races before the end of the year. So he will be continuing with the Cars Tour despite the suspension and what he feels is kind of an unjust suspension and not being able to kind of get his side out. But that is what he has to say. I'm not sure if I totally believe him. I like a lot of the things that he's saying. I respect the fact that he got angry through the Haas device. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Even throwing the grass, I'm not like, I don't think that's a big issue. Yeah, fine him, whatever. I mean, if you wanted to keep that out, I get that the Cars Tour is doing that. I know that they've set that precedent for that suspension with Connor Jones, so I'm fine with that if that's what they want to do. I don't think I'd want to do the suspension. I kind of like the fact that you let drivers get upset. I mean, who was it? I think it was like Danica Patrick, or was it Tony Stewart threw his helmet at Danica Patrick at Bristol. I don't know. Like I talked Jimmy Spencer. That's part of NASCAR, right? That's stock car racing. You like those emotions on the sleeves. Those are kind of what is, I think, is a big part of the draw of the sport, is the fact that these guys are so passionate, and it's really like what we like to see. And you see it on the track, you see it in the pits, etc., and in the garage area. Has to be. So I get where he's coming from there. I just don't know if I believe him when it comes to the fact that he's saying McNally put hands on my mother, left bruises on her, and then he tried to choke him. That just seems a little hyperbolic. I'm not sure if that's the case. Maybe he put his arm around him or something like that. Maybe he was trying to drag him away. I don't know. And again, like, we don't usually see Cars Tour officials getting involved in these brawls for the most part. Usually let the police kind of handle that when they happen. The officials might be there, but they got their little notebook and like writing notes or whatever. Usually not maybe getting involved there. So I like some of the things he's saying here, but I just don't know if I truly believe him. We don't have the evidence to see that. So until we see video that actually shows what he's saying occurred, I'm going to go with the Cars Tour on this, given the fact that he was the one who was clearly emotional, very upset, obviously throwing his Hans device, throwing the clod of dirt. And you can see that in some of the front stretch video that he did after being involved in the incident. And then obviously the Flow Racing interview he gave as well. He was clearly still very emotional. And even after like the race ended, he's still blaming Landon with the dirt clod, even though the replay is clear that Landon didn't have anything to do with it. So, those are just kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you guys make of this. You guys think I'm completely off the mark? What do you make of what Andrew Grady had to say? Do you believe him? Are you kind of where I'm at, where you like a lot of what he's saying, but you don't actually believe maybe what he's actually saying of what occurred? Let me know in the comments below.